hmTV matters.
Hello, everyone. I am Samantha Sosnik, your host of Putting the Brakes on Bullying. And today I am excited to have as my guest a young man who has taken a truly wild set of circumstances and turned it into a positive path of motivation that aims to help others. Hi, Ben.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I know your story, and I follow you on Instagram, and I'm totally enamored of what you're doing to put good into the world. And I was hoping that you can start by explaining to us what your latest endeavors have been for motivating and life coaching.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure to be here. This setup looks great, and I'm so happy that we're able to make something like this happen. So what I'm up to lately is I'm a student at FAU, full-time student. I just finished my spring semester going into summer. I'm actually taking classes over summer. And so I have that going on. And then as well, I would consider myself a full-time entrepreneur as well as a full-time student. I have a couple different entrepreneurial endeavors going on right now. And where I'm putting my time into, if I had to rank them, I'd say number one is I'm posting content, as much content as I possibly can, as much as I want to. And then what exactly is that content trying to accomplish? The first thing is I genuinely want to be a quote unquote influencer, which is something I want to discuss a little bit more. What does that actually mean in 2026? What does it mean to be an influencer? So I guess first I talk about content creation, and then number two is probably about 30 to 40% of my content. I'm promoting my life coaching service where I make videos, and I am a certified life coach, and I'm trying to connect with clients who would be interested, and I'm fortunate enough where I have started to get my business going, and I have been working with clients, which has been amazing as a certified life coach. And then additionally, life coach, social media, and I have other projects that I love that are aimed to inspire people. For example, I'm writing my first movie. I'm trying to get into acting and learn more about that. And then at FAU, I'm in student organizations. So I guess the overall sum is I'm just trying to be the most well-rounded human I could possibly be while stemming from what I love, being public speaking and connection and motivation and inspiration, you could say.
What brought you to decide to take on this future path for yourself? What exactly? It takes a special person to want to give of themselves to others to make them better. You learn certain things, you have experiences in your life, and you take the brunt of what you dealt with, and then you turn it into something positive. So what is it that brought you to this point in your life?
Right, and I appreciate that question. So we have to go back in time a little bit. Right now, I'm 20 years old. It is, May 16th, 2026. So I want to bring us back to actually, ironically, exactly 2 years ago, yesterday is when I graduated high school. My brother just graduated high school yesterday. So this kind of brings it full circle. When I graduated high school, and that's exactly 2 years ago, actually, which is pretty wild. So in this past 2 years, I have gone through, from my perspective, I have matured. Everything about my life has changed, I wouldn't say everything. So many components of my life have changed in the past 2 years, which is probably something that is rare from the grand scheme of life. Most people change maybe gradually over a decade. But for me, everything about I know I just said a lot about my life when I look at my day-to-day life. So going back in high school, I had a completely different group of friends. I had a completely different lifestyle. I partied a little bit more. I was what I would consider more immature, younger, less wise than I am now. I was always a great student. So I ended up going to the University of Florida in Gainesville, which is a highly ranked and prestigious public university. And I started my journey there. It was going well. And then I went through this sudden, shocking change in my life, which gave me the opportunity to mature at an accelerated rate which is what we were talking about. And what that situation was, and I think this really ties in, we're going to talk about bullying and my experiences with bullying. To really explain it, I was walking back to my dorm room one night, and there was a group of students down the hallway in my dormitory in Gainesville. So it was the entrance to the hallway, my dorm room, and in the middle was a group of students. So, I was walking to my dorm, and there was this little ball that was rolled out to me on the ground. And I decided to step on the ball. Not a brilliant thing to do, but not particularly the worst thing in the world. A silly thing to do. So I keep on walking after I step on this ball. And after I step on this ball, I hear people yell, I hear people scream, and I see people run and craziness. Now, I was shocked. I was confused. What's going on? And then I look over my shoulder, and I then realize that inside of this ball was a pet dwarf hamster that I had just accidentally killed by accident. Of course, I step on this ball, but I didn't know that there was a dwarf hamster inside of this.
Who would be housing a hamster in the dorm room? It's not something that you typically would come across. And I wonder, just to go off track for 1 second, do you think at all that was done on purpose? Like, do you think that somebody did that? Like you just said, it rolled out to you. Do you think did you ever give any thought to that it was rolled out to you on purpose?
No, I think it was just a complete, the hamster was rolling around and the people were letting it roll, certainly intentionally, but it was no one's intention for, of course, anyone to step on the ball. That was just an accident. But that's why the dorm has policy in place where you're not allowed to have animals in a dorm room because accidents can happen. So we know that. So that was the basis of this incident and even at this point, the audience probably wouldn't understand, well, why did this impact your life? And that's what I want to transition to. So after this incident occurred, the story was drafted up and leaked online, and I was misrepresented and vilified as a hamster-killing sociopathic maniac who deserves the death penalty, who should go to jail, who should be expelled from school. There were all the death threats that you could possibly imagine online and the most horrible things. And from my perspective now, I've seen this happen time and time again from new bullying incidences. So for so many people, it might be shocking. But for me, at this point, I have experience just seeing how one story online, no matter how true it might be, turns into a massive cyberbullying onslaught where, and it's still out there online, the Reddit articles, and there's a platform called Yik Yak where a story gets posted and people are slandered with no regard for human decency whatsoever. A couple other examples of cyberbullying that was drafted up this happened on September 11th, 2024. Someone commented, "This is the worst thing that's ever happened on 9/11." Someone commented, and the other examples that I said, people were calling for me to have the death penalty, and people were calling for me to be expelled from the University of Florida.
That's something else. And you know what I find, in my own experiences as well, I do find that a lot of people don't have much purpose in their life, and they look to find something to jump on the bandwagon, to have some purpose. And they also want to go most people want to go with the crowd. People don't stand and stop and think, well, what is the truth here? Or let me go to the person that's being slandered and ask them what has happened and get it. There are two sides to a story. So when you it just shows you the immaturity level of somebody or a group of people that just go, in herds of people to they'd rather be with the group that's not, grounded than rather be with the person that stands alone. A bully usually has a group of people behind them. They usually are not, the victim is the one that stands alone. So continue. This is very interesting.
Right. And that's a great point. So the first pillar of the consequence that I paid, and actually to this day on Ben Chase Motivation, which is something that came as a result, my motivational page and inspiring people. We're coming up on 2 years. I still have comments. Probably it used to be on a daily basis. Now we're probably closer to a weekly basis. And the more I achieve, the more the haters come up, which is normal. But there's still people commenting hamster harassment and just horrible things. Probably on emojis. Someone actually published a picture of me and a picture of a hamster. So the point of me bringing up these examples is just to show how serious of cyberbullying I've dealt with. But now the message is strength and how I was able to overcome the difficult time. So the first pillar was cyberbullying, and then just to quickly continue to tell the consequence, and I guess the reason, who part of who I am today is what I was able to overcome. The cyberbullying was one pillar. Additionally, I was criminally charged as a result of this accident because of how viral it went online. And what we come to the conclusion of, and the way that I see it, is that when the media takes something to a high degree, judges and prosecutors then have extra pressure to do something. And even a college kid who I've never been in trouble before, I've been an animal owner my entire life. That there was no evidence whatsoever that a young man who lived in a college dorm is an animal killer who's doing this intentionally. But none of it mattered because of the cyberbullying. So I was criminally charged. I had to go to court. We had to make a plea deal. I wasn't able. We wanted to plead not guilty to the crime, and the crime was animal cruelty. Of course, we wanted to plead not guilty, but we weren't even able to make that happen. But luckily, I didn't have to plead guilty. I was able to plead no contest to the charge, which we considered a small win, definitely. And then I served 12 months of probation with the state of Florida, 50 hours of community service, 12 hours of anger management, and I think there was one more sanction. And I had to see a therapist and have treatment, and whatever the therapist prescribed me, I had to do. So the point is, at this point, it's insane, the consequence that I paid for this accident, in my opinion.
The person that owned the hamster, obviously there were parents involved, correct? What was the parents' approach on this? Like, God forbid that happened, and if I experienced that, it wouldn't be something that I would have done to the person like yourself. Like, it's just an accident. You shouldn't have had the animal to begin with. What was the parents' stance on this situation of the person that owned the hamster?
And that's a great question. And I do think it's an important question. And I will start by saying I don't speak much of the owner of the dwarf hamster. It's something that in my healing and recovery, I've just had to accept whatever my reality is. But I could never fully know their view or vantage point. I never directly spoke to them. But based on the slight information I do have, it is to my understanding that the parents, my father did speak with the father of the owner of the dwarf hamster, and they had a father-to-father talk. And from my perspective, things seemed fairly reasonable and normal. So, I don't speak much about the family or the owner of the dwarf hamster. I try to have moved on. But I guess the simple answer is things seemed, I had other details that are important. I moved out of Gainesville. I came home. I moved out of the dorm. I was gone because I no longer felt safe on campus. People were knocking on my door, calling me Jeffrey Dahmer the night of. People were looking at me in class, laughing, pointing. I was getting, like I said, my cell phone number, Snapchat, Instagram, all of these platforms. I was the victim of I wouldn't say a viral, like, let's say virals in the millions, but if you collectively put together the impact that the hamster story had, we're definitely, in terms of views, comments, we're probably in the 500,000 to a million range, would be my guess.
Listen, I've had my own experience, and it could be very, very life altering. And, you just have to, but I, like I said before, you took something so traumatic and so debilitating. You had to leave school in order to kind of, get yourself together and be safe, feel safe. That, but you took it and you turned it into something extremely positive. Like, I give a lot of credit where credit is due when it comes to, starting on something that you are doing from the heart. I feel that when you do something from the heart, it has a much better outcome. And you now, I follow you on Instagram, I watch your videos, and, there's not enough of that out there. To stand alone and do something like that is very commendable, because, like I said, most people want to be like, Xerox copies of everybody. I don't know if that's a word, maybe your generation may not know, but duplicates. Everybody wants to look like everyone, be like everyone. And here you went out of the box and you decided to make this experience into something positive. And I always say, the more you speak about something that happened to you personally, first of all, it takes courage, but at the same time, it's like, who cares what people think about what you're talking about? If it hits one person, you've made a tremendous accomplishment. And so tell me more about your videos. Because you have a lot, you do a lot of them, and they're very good. I urge people to follow you. Ben Chase Motivation. Is that it? That's the exact. I don't want to. Okay. And so tell us more. What are some of your goals for other people? Because a lot of people that sit in silence need to hear someone and say, oh, you too? Oh my God, maybe I can get in contact with them. That's the best thing. I love doing that for people. So tell me what you do in your videos that help to promote that.
Right. And thank you for bringing that up. So just to transition where Ben Chase Motivation came from, after the hamster situation, I came home, I was recovering. I was meeting with therapists and a life coach, which is really important because when I was in my rock bottom moment, you could say, my parents and we hired a life coach for me, and that changed my life and helped me think about things more positively and just find groundedness in life. And it's something that I'd like to speak about more. But Ben Chase Motivation, I started posting videos in March of last year. So I think it was right around March 15th. So I'm over a year now, and I haven't missed a single day of posting in over 365 days. It's something that I just got into, and it's something that I do love. I love content creation. I love creating just these authentic videos. So I started in March, and I posted, I think I'm at around 1,270 posts on my page. I have about, in the last 90 days, I'm at around 3 million views. And the types of video that I post it's a bit more, it's fairly general, but it all does stem back to positivity and motivation. A lot of it is me getting in front of a camera and telling some sort of story. I've told my hamster story. I've told stories about life coaching. I've told stories about acting. I've told stories about friends. I've told stories about not having friends. And I try to connect with my audience and really teach. I posted a video recently that says real men cry, because we see so many things online about this new thing with the manosphere and something that's impacting my generation. I'm trying to counteract that. Brain rot content, we see a lot of that. I go against that. I actually made songs anti-brain rot. And what brain rot content is, it's something that's impacting Gen Z, and it's quite literally content that means nothing. It's called brain rot. And it's, generates billions of views. One of my stances is I'm anti-brain rot. I would rather use social media to talk to people in an authentic manner rather than making aimless jokes that quite literally rot people's brain cells, especially younger people. So the overall message of Ben Chase Motivation is I love to inspire, entertain people in an inspirational and authentic way, I would say.
That's amazing. I find, the more raw someone is and the more willing they are to discuss personal traumas, I think makes for a better person. I think the people that, want to hide behind a facade just so they can fit in, it's really not going to get you anywhere in life. I got to be honest. I find it to be something that, like you use the word authenticity, and there's nothing more powerful than authenticity. You may not reach everybody. You may not, you might have people laughing. I'm sure there's people that might look at something I've done, but I don't care. It's not about pleasing people. It's about helping somebody. And a lot of people just don't get that, because unfortunately in this day and age with, like you said, the internet and Snap and Instagram and, everything has to look good on the outside. No one can really show, the struggles of something someone's going through, because it doesn't fit into the popularity narrative. You know what I'm saying? So I commend you on doing what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. I always felt, and I live by this, it doesn't matter how you fall, it matters how you get up. And I think that, you are going to reach, the right people. You know what I'm saying? I think what you're doing is fantastic, and I only wish you the best of luck. And can you tell us more about your next steps into what else you want to be doing? What are the things you're looking to? How are you looking to grow this into a business?
Right, absolutely. So right now, I'm taking it on a day by day, client by client approach when it comes to my coaching. I post my coaching videos and I follow up with people, and I'm seeing who's interested in my personal one-to-one coaching because I enjoy that and I love that. And then with the videos, I'm going to continue to create on a higher and higher level. And additionally, there's a media aspect to it as well, which I would say is the long term dream of being of building my Instagram into an opportunity where I can make videos for other companies. Actually, you catch me at a good time because this past week I was able to make 2 brand deals with 2 different companies. One of them is a very early startup, and the other is a little bit farther along. And the first startup, we did our videos, and then our agreement ended. But this other company is a company that I really, really believe in. And my idea as I'm a student in college is to continue to make videos for them and partner with them. And they're an incredible brand. They're called the Owl app, OWWLL. And they're genuinely, I've met with the CEO multiple times. His name's Jason. He's an incredible guy. And I want to continue to make videos for them. It's a paid thing. So that's the business aspect. But it's not like it's an extremely large amount. But the point is, I have an opportunity to represent a brand that I think is amazing. It's instant networking, and it's an app where on LinkedIn, instead of maybe sending a cold email on LinkedIn, on the Owl app, all the professionals have their available hours listed for you to give them a phone call. And most of the professionals, it's like $1. So you pay $1 to get on a phone call with a legitimate, proven professional. And the concept of the app, there's an incredible database. I really, really believe. So part of my vision right now is as I can continue to do work for Owl, once we have a viral video, that's going to benefit me and that's going to benefit them. And I think that could be a great partnership. And I'm still planning on going to law school along with the social media. But really, I would just say the day by day approach and taking it one client at a time, finding ways, to value myself and to put some sort of price tag to the value that I certainly believe that I have. And then really trusting the process outside of that. And then the last other component, when I look long term, is I want to make movies. I want to act in movies, and I love sports. I want to do sports analyst stuff. So it is really that influencer type thing, and almost the Mr. Beast route of just growing a personal brand where I really have the opportunity to speak on it when it gets to a point, really the things that I truly love, and find ways to make money off of advertising and viewership.
Yes, that's amazing. Capitalism is a very strong part of our society, and that's excellent to think that way. So let me ask you one more question about the life coaching. So how do you feel? Like, what is your feedback from the people that you've had so far? Are you feeling like, because my main thing is when you reach someone that they're feeling better, like bottom line. So do you feel that you're reaching people, and I'm sure it's a continual, meetings. So do you feel that you're making a difference in that? Do you feel people are responsive?
So I've had multiple clients so far, and the way that my structure works is I have a 6-week program or a 12-week program. One of my clients went through my entire 12-week program. The other went through the 6-week program, and absolutely 100%. A high amount of personal growth, a high amount of a new way of thinking, a more positive way of thinking. And it's been 100%. It's been a pleasure to work with my clients. And really what my job is as the coach is just to be here as someone who's listening, and we call it active listening, and then ask reflective questions that can get our clients to think in ways that they wouldn't have thought before, always stemmed in positivity, optimism, and really brainstorming how they can improve their areas for growth. And why I love coaching, why I fell in love with coaching, is I met with my own coach, changed my life. And then I took a life coach certification course. And coaching is rather simple, as most great things in life are. They really are rather simple. You see all the biggest companies in the world with their slogans. They're normally 5 words. 5 words you can count on one hand. For example, I saw a Publix truck. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. That built, like when we talk about capitalism. So just the idea of simplicity having such an impact on people in a positive way, that's what I try to bring into my coaching. But of course, consistency is so important. That's why you need that 6 or 12 weeks to notice the long-term change, which I'm definitely noticing both myself and my clients' own personal reflections.
Put into simple terms, you got help from someone else and now you're putting it back into the universe. You're trying to give back, which is a great thing. And I wish you all the luck. I don't even have to wish you luck. I know this is going to be fantastic. I think you're wonderful. And I would hope more young men like you take on this course in their life, because the world will be a better place for it. And again, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you being so honest. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining me on this episode of Putting the Brakes on Bullying. I am your host, Samantha Sosnik. And like I always say, please do something kind for somebody else today. You actually might change their day. Have a great day.